Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of Moments with Melonie. This topic today that we're going to talk about actually has been something I wrote a LinkedIn post about it yesterday. It's just something that has been on my mind just recently, like looking at how I've been reacting to things, and it's a whole long story here. But what I really want to talk about is self-awareness, in particular, how self-awareness can actually fuel personal and professional growth. And so, this episode is really going to look at the power of self-reflection, which I know I talked about in, I think, episode 1 or 2. Memory's always fuzzy. So, but I know I just recently talked about that. However, it is very closely tied to our self-awareness. And so before I jump into all of the data and, the stuff that I do here, I want to kind of talk a little bit about what prompted this. And so earlier in my career, I would have loved to think that I was self-aware, but really was not. And, I move with this intensity. Sometimes I still do, actually. It's something that I try to balance. But I move with this intensity in work and this commitment to driving results and reaching goals and achieving success and all of these things. And earlier in my career, and even actually more recently, I've seen it rear its head again. I find that I am not as in touch with the impact that my intensity has on others, whether it's here at home, whether it's with my team at work or my peers, my coworkers, my boss. There's a passion that kind of drives me, especially in the work that I do today, that I've noticed over these past few weeks as I have stepped back to self-reflect and to look at how I'm managing certain situations. I'm realizing that my level of self-awareness has kind of backtracked a little bit. And so that has prompted this to kind of be on my mind. As you all know, I've said in the past, I'm very big on self-reflection. So I look at my actions, I look at other people's actions. I try to put myself in their shoes. I try to think from different perspectives. I try to replay like how a situation went, what I could do differently. I've noticed I've had a few conversations in the past couple months that as I self-reflected, I realized like, oh shit, like I could have handled that differently, or I could have said something or not said something. I have been with my husband since we started dating in 1995. And he has told me pretty much since then that sometimes, like if I would just close my mouth for a second and think before I speak, situations might come out a little bit differently. And I take that to heart. So I have been trying to change that since 1995, given that it's 2025 right now. But really where I'm, feeling is that, sometimes it creates this feeling of being stuck or this feeling of like disconnection. Sometimes we're on autopilot, especially when we're in high stress situations. And that can really affect the emotion that I'll say like the emotion can overpower what you want to accomplish or the message that you want to deliver. And so, really today, we're going to take a look at why self-awareness is truly the foundation of growth. We're going to talk about how self-reflection can impact both careers, relationships, and your confidence. So not only self-reflection, but self-awareness can affect those things greatly. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about some practical exercises to help you build self-awareness, because as you know, if you've stayed an episode before, I really don't want this just to be my opinions or my experiences, but I want to give people like practical tools that they can use. So I want to jump in just a little bit about the research and talk a little bit about self-awareness and why it matters. So self-awareness is your ability to recognize and understand your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, and then how they impact the world around you. And I think the big piece that we sometimes miss is how it impacts the world around you, how it impacts the people around you, whether you're at work, at home. Sometimes my daughter, who is 17 now, which is crazy, will say like, do you need to take a nap? Or like, oh, you're coming in real hot. Is everything okay? And those are sometimes just like little external checks for me. But I also have to have those internal checks. So Dr. Tasha Eurich, an organizational psychologist like myself, found that 95% of people, so I'm going to say this again, 95% of people think they're self-aware, but only about 10 to 15 people actually, or 10 to 15% of people actually are. So this means that most people are walking around in the world thinking that they are self-aware, and they don't realize that they have these big blind spots that actually impact our decisions, it impacts our career, and it impacts our relationships. So I have been one of those people, right? Like, as I said earlier, I walked around for a really long time thinking I was self-aware. Top secret, like, I don't think I really became self-aware until I started working in my last role, or as I was like going through my PhD and doing more psychology classes and like studying psychology just to understand how I could be better once I finished school. My last job as a business psychologist was like eye-opening because I went through assessments myself to get the job and assessments to be certified to do the job. And it just was very eye-opening of how people perceive and receive me. And we don't think about that either. But my actions, while I may have good intentions, the perception of those actions or behaviors may be a lot different than what I'm thinking. And people who are more self-aware are actually able to understand that in the moment versus after the fact. So I feel like in the last few months, I've gone from being able to recognize these things in the moment and adapt and shift to actually not being able to recognize them, not being able to control some of the emotion around decisions that are made or emotions around situations that I'm in, and I'm not able to do it till after the fact. And self-reflection is great. However, self-awareness helps us to notice these things in the moment. So there's actually some really good news. Self-awareness is something that can be developed, which no surprise. Hopefully everyone knows that. And one of the best ways to do that is through intentional self-reflection. So, let's talk a little bit about how self-awareness can impact your personal growth. And so self-awareness helps us to understand our triggers and our emotional responses to those triggers. It also helps us to gain clarity on what truly matters to us. And it helps us to recognize patterns that patterns that help and really patterns that hold us back. And I think this is where I am right now, is like I have been seeing patterns of behavior that have developed for me in the last few months that are helping me. And I've also seen patterns of behavior that really are holding me back or, not helping me develop relationships the way I need them to be developed. Maybe it's not helping with building trust with people. And so, I know that I have work to do. And actually recording this podcast is part of my own self-reflection as I think through all of these different situations. And then it also gives me the ability to do one of the other things that I'm super passionate about, which is helping others. And so, there was a study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that found that individuals who engage in regular self-reflection experience lower stress levels. Oh, I definitely need that. Higher emotional intelligence and greater life satisfaction. And that becoming self-aware helps us to control our reactions instead of allowing our emotions to actually control us. So, just as we think about this and self-awareness, it's not just in the personal life, it's in the professional life as well. So in the workplace, we find that self-awareness and having self-awareness is really a non-negotiable, especially as you move up in leadership roles, as you need to shift to being the role model of the behaviors that you want to see. This is another area where I think, am I actually role modeling the right behaviors? Am I role modeling the right way to handle and process emotion in this moment or over the last few months? And actually last night, I get most of my great ideas or thoughts at 3 a.m. I have no idea why. But last night I was realizing, and that's what prompted me to record this morning, but I was realizing that I am not handling these things as well as I could. And so I'm looking and reflecting on what are those triggers that are causing me to maybe act in a way or display behaviors or emotions that I wouldn't typically do. And I'm learning a little bit more about myself as I go through these situations. And, I actually knew that transitioning back into a corporate role after leaving corporate life in like 2016, 2017, working as a consultant, working from home since then, and then transitioning back into like I knew there were going to be some challenges and some needs for me to change. But now that I'm in it, right, I feel like there's a little bit more work that I need to do that I didn't realize I was going to have to do, right? And so self-reflection has helped me to get to that point. And it also is helping me, like, I'm a strategist and a planner, right? So what's my plan? How do I act differently? How do I use those emotions to like fuel more positive moments versus those emotions fueling more negative moments that I feel like I might be creating. And so that's my homework for myself to figure out this weekend. I do use moments of reflection like over the weekend or like a little bit more extended periods of time so that I can like go to work Monday and show up differently and show up the way that I need to for my team, my peers, my boss, like all of the people around me, show up differently here at home. So those stresses and frustrations aren't coming back here when I get home in the evenings. So there was some research from Cornell University that found that leaders who are self-aware create stronger teams, right? So when I think about like, am I creating a stronger team? Am I limiting my team's abilities because of the challenges that I'm personally having right now? It also helps you to make better decisions. I actually have tracked a couple of decisions or things that like I would have done differently after the fact that I've been kind of processing and thinking through. But it also helps you experience better job satisfaction. So self-awareness has a direct and positive correlation to job satisfaction. The more self-aware, the more satisfied you are with your job, the better you engage with others, the more powerful teams you can build, the more engaging experiences you can have with your team or your family. And so to really, when you think about self-awareness, it helps boost stronger leadership. It helps you with better decision making, as I said, and it really helps you to improve conflict resolution. I think that is one of the areas, the conflict piece for me, which I used to be really, really good at conflict, but the more things that are at stake, the higher stress points that you have, the more likely you're going to revert back and not have like the same approach that you might have. And I'll tell you, conflict resolution has always been a strength for me. And I think in the last few months, there have been some real challenges. And what I realized is like, it's not fueled by me or that other person like angry at each other or having these conflicts or butting heads, but it's really about like what's at stake. It's about the it's about the pressure. And so like those things, like that's a perfect example of being self-aware. I was able to and continue to step back after the moment. I need to work on stepping back in the moment, pausing, reflecting before I speak, but stepping back after the moment is a good start for me to really feel like a little bit different in how, not even feel, like to respond differently in the moment. Like that is my homework. That is my challenge. That is something that I'm going to work on diligently is how do I step back in the moment, remove or take the emotion, not remove it, right? Because I need to feel what I need to feel, but not allow those emotions to influence my response. And, for those of you who know me, you'll know that I'm very transparent. I'm very upfront. I tell people what you see is what you get with me. There's no smoke and mirrors or anything like that. There's no hidden agendas. I'm not out for myself. Like I took the job I'm in today because I felt like I needed to live with more purpose. I felt like I needed to have more impact. I was really pushed last year. It's very weird. Like last year, I felt something pushing me towards something, and I did not know what that was, but there was a strong, I don't know if it was a push or a pull, maybe it was both, to do more and to have more purpose. And what I'm realizing is that that same energy that was pushing me in one way or pulling me is now pushing and pulling me in another way that is allowing for those emotions to outweigh what I know to be the best way to proceed in a situation. So those are the things, again, that I am now reflecting on that have prompted me to really just think about, how do I show up differently? And it's not even about how do I show up better or worse, because I am still human, but it's like, how do I show up differently for myself, for my team, and for everyone around me, so that I can actually still make change, right? And still be part of the solution without having some of those more combative moments that are very unproductive, and they don't really lead to a solution. They just lead to frustrations, and then people walk around and they're not talking to other people. And it's like, it creates this whole thing. And I don't want to live in that space, right? Like when we think about, I always call them, like when I was coaching with executives, I would say, think about your energy dollars, right? Like we only have so much energy that we can give and receive. And I think about, like, how do I want to spend my energy dollars? And I want to spend my energy dollars on positive moments that give me some energy dollars back. Lately, I have felt like I am more spending my energy dollars and exerting energy that is not coming back to me and fulfilling me. And it actually isn't also fulfilling the people that I am engaging with. And so I am working on, like, how do I make that shift to make sure that there is value for me in the energy dollars that I am spending. And then there also is value for the other person who is spending their energy dollars as well. I know that's all kind of very theoretical and in the sky, but you'll feel when your energy bank is drained, you feel it. Whether it's the headache, whether it's the fatigue, whether it's the disengagement with others, it could be the attitude. I have a serious attitude problem. I have had this attitude since I was a child. My mother has, used to always tell me, like, your attitude is what's going to get you in trouble. And she was right more often than not. But as I grew older, as I became more self-aware, I realized that I have this attitude, and I realized that impact that it has on others and myself and my energy. But sometimes I'll fall into this space where my attitude is not fueling my energy or anyone else's. And, when I sit in those spaces, that creates more stress. I'm a big tracker of statistics, right? So I'm watching how my body responds to the stress by using health monitor. Like, I'm seeing all of these things, and I'm seeing how, I spent last week almost 4 hours in a high stress state total throughout the 24 hours. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think about what stress does to the body and what stress does to the mind and what stress does to the way you behave and the way you perform, spending 4 hours in a high stress state, it was not good for me or anyone else. So I even try to sit and think, like, what did I do in those moments where I could have brought some of that stress down? And I'm going to continue working on that, because I know that that's not really going to help. So as we think about, like, some practical ways for us to build awareness through self-reflection, one of the things that you can do is a 5-minute daily reflection practice, which I think I talked about on the last episode. This can be 5 minutes. This can be 24 hours. Sometimes for me, it's 48 hours, whatever it needs to be, but put a time limit on it. But you want to, at the end of each day, just take a few minutes to really reflect on what went well that day, what were some of the challenges in that day that you faced, and what was one thing you could have done differently. And last night, as I was reflecting on my day, there were a lot of things that I realized I could do differently. There's a lot of ways that I can show up differently. And those are things that I'm going to actively work on when I go to work starting on Monday, right? Like, how am I allowing these instances, these individual interactions to affect me and by extension affect others around me? And then I'm also going to work on, like, stopping in the moment. And I did a little bit of that last week, but, like, really stopping in the moment to figure out, like, what should my response be, and taking my husband's advice and honestly acknowledging maybe my response doesn't need to be anything in this moment. I don't need to have the last word. I'm very, very transparent, and I will tell you how I feel. I will tell you when you're pissing me off. I will tell you, like, all of these things. I'll tell you when you're great. I'll tell you when I enjoy your company as well. But I am going to really work on what do I really need to communicate with people to accomplish whatever the goal is that I'm trying to accomplish in that conversation? The second thing you can do is the why do I feel this way technique. And this is one, like when I did the research when I woke up this morning, I was like, that's one I'm going to try. And so when you are feeling like the next time that you are feeling stressed, frustrated, anxious, or overwhelmed, pause and ask yourself, like, and this could be in the moment, it doesn't have to be out loud, like just really quick pause and you say, what is triggering this emotion? You're going to say, is that past pattern or is it specific to this situation? So am I allowing a past experience to fuel how I'm responding to a current situation? And that current situation may not even have anything to do with that past experience. And then you're going to ask yourself, how can I respond intentionally instead of reactively? And what really drove home for me is that one sentence. I have not taken the time in this last few weeks to step back and say, how can I respond intentionally instead of reactively? So I have been responding in a very reactive state, whether it's a reaction to what someone has said to me that has pissed me off and I need to let them know, or whether it is a reaction to things that are environmental things that are going on around me. And there's a lot of environmental things right now that are impacting me at home and at work. And I'm not taking the time to really step back and say, how can I respond more intentionally? And how can I respond differently when I am in those states of frustration? So that's the second thing is the why do I feel this way exercise or technique. The next thing is seeking feedback from others. And so here's the thing about seeking feedback from others. You have to want to hear the feedback and you have to actively listen to it. So I love when research or like when I research stuff and it puts that as like a thing of like, go get feedback from others. And I actually have told people that in my coaching experience and just in my career experience as well. But the key to this is that you want to take the feedback and you want to listen, right? And decide the pieces that you can action on. And so, it is one of the best ways to expand your self-awareness. A couple things here with asking for feedback. Like you have to find someone you trust to give you the feedback. And you have to find someone who's actually witnessing you in those moments that are creating concern. So if I ask my husband for feedback on a thing that happened at work, he has no idea, right? Like he's a great sounding board when I get frustrated, him and my sisters, and I have friends that I can do that with. But if this is about your personal life, that's great. Those are people who are experiencing you in the moment in those personal interactions that can give you feedback. When it is at work, it needs to be someone who is also experiencing you, but it has to be someone that you can trust, someone who is a thought partner with you that you work with, whether it's a mentor, it can be a manager, it can be, just a peer, but you want to get that feedback and you want to actually listen to it. And some of the questions you can ask is like, what's one of the strengths you see in me? You can ask, what are some of the areas that I can improve? You can come out of a meeting with someone and you can say like, man, how did I engage in that meeting? Right? Like what feeling did I kind of provoke? What was there? Did I create tension? Was I creating success in that moment? And getting that real-time feedback can be very helpful, which I would actually practice that next week too. Like that's one of the things that's on my list because while like the self-reflection piece is great, but I also need some inputs, right? We get inputs from different internal and external inputs. Like I need some more inputs so that I can, gauge and better understand like how I am impacting others. Now, this might feel like really uncomfortable, and it is really uncomfortable for me. But really what we have to understand is the outside perspective can reveal the blind spots. We are not going to see our own blind spots. And I will say that again, you may be one of those 95% that think that you're totally self-aware and you see all of your blind spots and you know how you're fully impacting others. But the truth is you do not. I don't, like we need to be able to get those outside perspectives. And the outside perspectives also will help with the self-reflection. So if you have your own monologue running in your head and you're using that to self-reflect, and you're only looking at it from your perspective, and you're only looking at it from the outcomes that you've seen, felt, heard, that is not going to really help you. You do have to have some external inputs or pieces of data to help you understand truly what those blind spots are. So with that, final thoughts and takeaways. I always like to remind myself when I'm going too long that this is Moments with Melonie, not Hours with Melonie. But like self-awareness is truly can truly change both your professional and personal life, right? I could say it's a game changer and all of that stuff, but like self-awareness is really transformational. And it also matters because it affects how you handle stress, how you handle emotion, how you grow your relationships, whether they're professional or personal, and it can help you navigate those relationships. And so you have to remember, like, we are not in a world alone, right? We're not flying solo in this world. We are having impact on others and others are impacting us. And so we have to be aware of that. And what I want to do, like, as we close, and I know this was a lot of information, and I have a post on LinkedIn. I will do, I'm going to work on doing a blog post on LinkedIn to give this information because I think it's really important, especially the current state of the workplace, the current state of our personal lives. Like, there's a lot of stressors. Like I said, there's a lot of external factors that are impacting all of us. So I want to make sure that you have this. But like, I do want to challenge you to try one of the self-reflective exercises and share your insights with someone, right? So that's another thing I just want to say really quickly. Like, sometimes you also need to find that thought partner or that person you trust to share the insights that come back to you from that self-reflection. So again, it's not working in isolation. It's not working in this bubble of your own thoughts and beliefs, because we all have our own mental models that we see things through. And sometimes we need to have outside points or outside inputs to be able to help us to really process. You can also share these insights on social media with hashtag Moments with Melonie. If you have found this episode valuable, please, don't forget to subscribe. I'd love for you to leave a comment. Share it with someone who you think needs this message. Reach out to me and let me know if there's another topic that you all want me to discuss. I am going off of things that are not only my experiences, but what I'm seeing happen around me. But if there's a topic that you all want me to dig into, please let me know. And then as we break away, I just want to remind everyone to keep reflecting, keep learning, and really keep growing yourself and growing those around you. So this is episode 3 of Moments with Melonie. Thank you all.